Hello everyone and welcome to the next video. Today's video is going to be about nature, religion and spirituality, a set of subjects that I've not discussed on the channel in quite some time. Today's video is going to be about the third path. It's going to be about animism, concrete magic. But before I get into all those subjects, I think it's best just to give a quick overview, just to align my thoughts, to order my thoughts, a bit of context. And this indeed actually does relate to the third path in the sense that I seem to have gone through two distinct modes of thinking in relation to nature, religion and spirituality, but I seem to be on the trajectory for a third way, and I'll of course get onto that in a little while, but for now, a bit of context. Of course, I used to be an atheist. I used to believe that everything was material, mechanistic even. I used to try and reduce everything to its fundamental parts, biological principles, mechanics. I used to see that as a way of understanding nature better than any spiritual path. So very much in a Dawkinsian sense, the wonder of the natural world is not devalued by science, essentially. Over time, however, I became more and more enamoured and more appreciative of religion, to the point that in the past 2 years or so, I became much more aware of the value of symbolism and idealism and transcendence, which was previously the antithesis of my way of thinking. My appreciation grew to the point where I had to write an essay, mea culpa, for Amethyst Review, describing my newfound appreciation for Christianity in particular, not just Christianity, but all religions. And that is the second way, really. I became more enamoured of religion. So going from atheism to reading about Plotinus and Plato and Aquinas and Buddha and all these other figures and all these other schools and ideas and concepts, just complete opposite of what I used to believe. However, both were still rooted in a love of nature. They were always rooted in an appreciation of the natural world. Even when I was an atheist, a deterministic, materialistic atheist, I appreciated the polytheistic religions. And again, I have to stress that my viewing everything as purely material, I saw that as the best way to appreciate nature. I saw that as the absolute. There was nothing added. That's the thing. There was nothing at all added to nature. You didn't need to add anything. The tree before me is purely material, and that is what it should be. Why do you need to add anything? And in some ways, I'm still struggling with that. Even though nowadays I would say that I'm sympathetic to pantheism, that God works through everything. But in a sense, I still feel, in my heart of hearts, I still feel that is something added, even if God is said to be diffuse in a sense in pantheism. It's still an added thing. Why isn't everything material? Just purely material. But I can also see, I see the logic behind the Aquinian simple God as well. So those are the two ways, really. Atheism, and then I kind of broadly feel like there is something more, not necessarily that it is or needs to be higher than nature, but there is something more, some kind of divinity within nature. However, recently, for my thesis and just generally, I've been reading a lot about a variety of concepts, kind of a fuzzy set, to use a term from fantasy theory, a fuzzy set of concepts and schools of ideas and thinking. So the reason that I'm thinking about this third path is that not only is it a good way of relating to the previous two paths that I went down, it is actually a term that Patrick Curry talks about in relation to the third path of fairy, which is essentially not scientific rationalism, but not religious supernaturalism either. And then that leads into relational animism. and Max Weber's concrete magic, which I believe I've talked about on this channel before in my thesis enchantment video. So if I believe that the trees before me aren't purely material, but I also don't believe that, or I don't fully buy into the logic of a supernatural transcendent being. Not even the logic purely of pantheism either. It has to be something that is strangely both spiritual and material and neither. There's something I'm trying to wrap my head around. Concrete magic, Max Weber's concrete magic. The tree is material, but it's also spiritual. It's a difficult thing for me to understand, because I feel like what is that spirit? Why does the spirit need to be added? But I can see what Patrick Curry says when he talks about the tree isn't just, maybe it is as simple as the tree isn't just an inert resource. It's not just a bundle of xylem and phloem. There is something more to it, but I'm not sure what that is. I'm not sure why you have to say. I wish I could understand this, because it seems I'm trying to grasp it, because it feels like it's just a linguistic turn where I'm just saying I appreciate the tree for what it is. I know that it's material, and its being material is a way of appreciating it more. But what is the spiritual aspect to it? We are only humans in relation to other beings. I'm only a human in relation to the fact that that is a tree before me. I suppose it's rooted in the idea that the more than human world is alive in a sense. It's potentially a set of subjects. All of these things that are ideas that Patrick Curry writes about, Bron Taylor, Lawrence Koop, Graham Harvey, people like this. I'm trying to understand this more because it's fascinating. It's not my original beliefs, and it's not also this transcendence. You don't have to look to anything more than nature. But I just don't fully understand what the spiritual aspect is. Because even when I was a materialistic atheist, there was, in a sense, the spirit within the tree. I mean, even if I viewed something as being inert, that doesn't mean that I don't appreciate it. If you see what I'm saying there, I never see something being purely material as it's purely inert. I don't see that you could. The way that language works, the way that the way that humans just respond to the world in the most basic sense, in an aesthetic sense. Even if you view that tree as being a bundle of xylem and phloem, you still know that it is a tree, and that it has a particular. It is beautiful. It is something. So I'm trying to figure out what that spirit is in the tree. And it's curious because Patrick Curry writes about, he says in a credo that he wrote, that he is neither materialist and neither spiritualist, which is fascinating to me. I'm trying to grasp this. So it's a curious thing. I went from everything being purely material to actually almost the opposite, to wanting there to be a transcendent God looking over everything. But then that was kind of diluted in a sense to pantheism. But now there is something more immanent. I think it's the immanence I want to try and recapture. Strangely enough, my atheism was rooted in that immanence. It was nothing but nature. And then it, in a second way, became higher. Everything was. I wanted there to be a God. But this third path is, in a sense, bringing my beliefs back down to earth, essentially. But it still retains that element of the divine or the spiritual, but it is also rooted in the material as well. I don't think that my views necessarily have to be mutually exclusive. There can be overlap. Writers that I'm aware of, religious thinkers and whatnot, these people that I've talked about before, dark green religion, dark green spirituality, issues of deep ecology, things like this. They try to retain that sense of immanence, that the intrinsic value of nature, and I fully agree. I've always agreed, but I don't see that there's necessarily a problem of wanting there to be something more as well, of looking to other worlds and wanting the human story to continue. I'm not, of course, not saying that these thinkers want that not to be the case. It's just that transcendence seems to be the enemy of their way of thinking, and I don't really see transcendence as being a problem as much as they do. I don't know. It's a strange thing. It seems to be highly contradictory a lot of the time. Appreciating nature for what it is, but then also wanting there to be some kind of finality or story, for there to be a purpose to everything. Just to touch on the topic of animism again. Most people throughout history were animists. They were animistic. They believed that nature had the potential to be a set of subjects, not incompletely analysed objects. Even when I think about my background in ecology and scientific ecology, it creates an issue in that I feel like I've almost betrayed this new path that I've come into, in the sense that, I mean, even just saying the name of one of my courses, my diploma before I did the degree, countryside management. There's so much wrong with that. For one, the countryside aspect perpetuates the dichotomy of the nature and civilization dichotomy, or the humans and nature dichotomy, or nature and culture, for example. The idea that the countryside is just out there somewhere, that we are apart from nature. More problematic is the management aspect. Now, of course, I studied scientific ecology for 5 years, half a decade, and I'm fully aware of the necessity of managing ecosystems. But it's problematic for this new sense of this new animistic perspective that I'm trying to understand more about. Managing ecosystem services, the resources that nature provides for us. Now, that does have its benefits. It shows people that nature has uses, which you have to show that nature has uses to people for them to be invested in. For them to be invested in nature, but it in a sense brings nature down to the level of inert resources that can be exploited. I don't know, maybe all that matters is just cultivating the ecocentric sensibility, cultivating the ecocentric worldview. Does it necessarily really matter that I'm not entirely sure of the status or category of that tree that I'm looking at right now, as long as I value it for what it is, which I've always done in a sense? I think that's what worries me. It's the fact that I can't reconcile I can't really see why my very original viewpoint is any different in a sense from where I am now. But I feel like it should differ because it's 2 layers of remove. I suppose the specifics do matter, however, in the sense that there are issues with, of course, New Age spirituality, idiosyncratic spirituality. I'm aware that there are a lot of distinctions to be made, and a lot of specifics, and a lot of thinking that goes into this. It's not wishy-washy. It's not an added extra. But perhaps that's something for another video. I feel that I can't end the video until I say something more substantial, but I think really all it comes down to is just appreciating nature for what it is, for the intrinsic value of nature. And I think it's just, in terms of religion and spirituality and these bigger questions, it's always going to be a difficult subject. So hopefully that video was interesting, hopefully it was food for thought, and made you think about your own views and your own relationship with nature. And thanks for the engagement with my recent video essay, my recent experimental video essay, The Humble Dark. And I guess all I can say is Merry Christmas. Till next time.